our reset program. So whether it's the thyroid, the menopause, gut programs, and even our deeper blood work, this just gives you a straight insight into the questions being asked inside the program. If you've got any questions, by all means, drop them in here as well. Just about to go live on Facebook as well, and then we'll dive right in. So just make sure that's recording. Hey boys and girls, we are live for the February live Q&A. I want to take you through the key questions that were submitted before today's call. So these are pre-prepared questions from our members inside the gut, thyroid, menopause programs, as well as some of our blood work members, so that you can get direct insight. So whether this question is from you or whether you're simply listening along, you're probably going to get some benefit. And I've also added some questions from our recent Q&A with our private members talking to our clients directly. These got really interesting, and I think I want to share them simply because they're the questions that you wish you could ask because you didn't know to ask them. All right, so I'm going to add in a couple here at the end that I think you might find quite useful as well. If you've got any questions at all, I'll do my best to circle back around and see these on Facebook, but if you could just comment that you're watching live or replay, that'd be amazing. So I can see who's seen this, and of course if you've submitted your questions, it's great to get a comment below so I know you've seen them as well. All right, so I'm going to get started on some of the questions that have come through, and we can simply go through them one by one. So the first one I want to look at was simply fluid retention when starting menopause HRT or in the first week. Now this is a really interesting one. It's not an expected response, but it's worth just being mindful that in week one, if you're seeing some hormonal adjustments from bringing in something like HRT, then of course there's going to be a bit of a working out period. Now, if it's drastic and it's continuing past the first couple of weeks, then it's maybe worth checking with your specialist there just to make sure the dosing is right, but keeping up adequate movement, fueling the body properly, not drastically changing anything else, is also really, really important. I think I've seen far too many people that have started on HRT and completely stopped exercise or doubled their exercise volume, and in both cases not being particularly helpful to HRT really being able to do its thing. All right, so try reduce inflammation, look after your body in hopefully all the cases in the ways you were doing before HRT, but again, the body's going to have to work things out over time, and it's not just as simple as, of course, on a male side if you were bringing in something like TRT, because it's actually a stabilizing of lots of things going on there as well. So stick with it for the first couple of weeks. If it's still becoming an issue and you haven't drastically changed anything, I know you're in the blood work program, so you should probably have a pretty nice foundation in place, but you can check with your specialist, and by all means keep us in the loop there as well. All right. So yeah, kind of an interesting one. Certainly fluid retention is something that comes up, and there's been a couple of clients recently that have said that there's been a couple of weeks to really stabilize there, but fluid retention directly, yeah, give it a couple of weeks. Second question that came through, what was it? Different milks, pros and cons, oat, soy, almond versus dairy also. So first thing I want to highlight here, when you follow the Gut Reset program or some version of our meal plans, you've probably seen that we've really addressed that gut health component first, and dairy and gluten might be something that you might remove for a period of time. Highlighting that this doesn't mean that we don't like dairy. I'm a big fan of dairy if the body tolerates it. The big thing to highlight here is, does your body tolerate it? Is it lactose? Is it whey? Is it both? Is it neither? Getting to the point that you can really address where that low energy, bloating, gas, irregular stools might be coming through from foods you continue to eat. And this is something we talk about all the time. If you're trying to improve gut health, it's not just going to come from taking a probiotic or taking kombucha. It's also addressing the foods you're currently eating that might be causing a disruption. So if you can highlight that first, that's a really, really important first step. I'm a big fan of dairy. It's a very good quality protein if the body uses it well, but being able to highlight if your body is okay. It can only really be done, this is with any food, not just dairy, strip it out for a couple of weeks. We recommend 4, and then go through a proper reintroduction. For example, if you take a whole lot of foods out and then bring in a hamburger, was it the dairy? Was it the gluten? Was it something else in there that was causing that bloating? So single ingredient, take the milk out, and then after 4 weeks, bring it back in. Try that for 1 day, see how you feel. 2 day, 3 day, and 4. If you're still fine, you can bring that dairy straight back in. All right, so that's a big one on the dairy. I'm a big fan of that if the body tolerates it. If I have to choose between the oat, soy, and almond, I drop the soy. In most cases, I'm not a fan of the soy being a regular option. Some soy products are okay, but not soy milk for the most part. Oat or almond would be fine. Kind of choose your preference. Oat has a small amount of gluten in it, but unless there's a strong sensitivity, I still think oat is an okay option. Me personally, I don't do oat, and this is where it's interesting, right? All these personal sensitivities, I find I get really sleepy off oat. So me personally, I don't do oat, but for many people that's fine. And almond again is a great option. Some people don't like the taste, and some almond milks have way too much sugar in them for what it should be. All right, so just be mindful that it doesn't mean that just because it's an almond milk or a dairy or an oat means it is good or bad. Check the ingredients, check how much extra sugar and stuff has been thrown in there. Certainly when you start to look at barista ready almond or oat milks, that's usually where they're adding in some sort of additional oils, and they're not particularly good ones. So, that stuff is worth looking at as well. All right. Another question just here on YouTube as well. I'm an inflammation machine. What foods do you recommend to start off in the right direction? Yeah, so Lav, what I'd suggest here is this point is actually a really good one, right? Is highlighting what foods might be causing that sensitivity. Two are obvious and two are very common, being your alcohol and sugar, being mindful if we can really strip those out, and dairy and gluten. If we can start with those, of course we can look at nightshades and oxalates and all sorts of things. We get very, very fancy, but being able to highlight those up front is helpful to address where some of that initial inflammation might come up. Now, I don't have enough context on you here, mate, but if there's some awareness of sleep quality and detoxification pathways, what sort of exercise and things you're doing, is there a general movement standpoint, but from a nutrition standpoint and generally where we address that inflammatory starting point, yeah, those food groups is a nice place to start for sure. I hope that helps. Next question here, can we split a meal and have it at two different times? So breakfast smoothie half way before training and half after, or should I give a certain amount of hours in between food? Okay, so quite a bit in this question. One of the things that's worth highlighting, especially if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, or above 40, it's worth being really, really mindful of what's the minimum amount of protein I need for this to actually do its job. Well, my goal with protein, among many others, immune function and satiety and all sorts, but one of them is rebuilding muscle. And if we're trying to do that around weight training, there's a certain threshold that we must meet in order to create that protein synthesis, in order to create that repair of tissue. And that's going to be generally around 3 grams of leucine, and depending on foods, give or take 25 to 35 grams of protein. So making sure that you're hitting that threshold in your meal is important, rather than having like a little bit here and a little bit there. If you're training first thing in the morning, if you're male and over 15% body fat, I think you'd be fine to just not eat beforehand, provided it's kind of under an hour, and then have that meal or smoothie in this case post training. If you're female, I'd still have something light potentially before training, depending on where your body fat is, where you are hormonally. That can be a, fast or don't, but find out what works for you best. But still be very mindful of having enough protein, a good quality meal post-workout, all right? So within that sort of 30 to 60 minutes we typically recommend is I'd go that smoothie post-workout, all right? A certain amount of hours between food and training, anywhere between 30 to 90 minutes, depending on how big the meal is. If you're having a small rice wafer and a little bit of almond butter, like I tend to recommend for that just purely a little bit energy but light on the stomach before you go into workout, I have that regularly 20 to 30 minutes before I work out and I have no issues. If I'm having a full-blown meal, yeah, I'd have at least 90 minutes between when you're having a full substantial meal and when you are training. So I hope that helps on the meal standpoint. Don't split it up. Stick to a good quality protein post-training rather than having too light a meal and not able to recover properly. Next one. Can't make the call today, but I'm curious about training intermittent fasting, how to balance with protein targets and the day of the fast. Elaine. Okay, cool. So intermittent fasting, depending on the season you're in, if you're doing this for more than 16 to 18 hours, you're just going to be very mindful of your total training volume. I personally have found that if I intermittent fast, a couple of days a week or more, I have to bring my weight training volume down to kind of like 3 days a week. If I'm able to bring it back to those 4 meals, I can comfortably train that 4th, maybe even 5th time in a week. Again, totally depends on goal. If the goal is to keep training volume low and you're already metabolically healthy, then the fasting is not a problem. But in most cases, if you're trying to drop body fat, I'm a big fan, and this is a common protocol of ours, to increase the frequency of meals first, get the body working, strip off the body fat, and then use fasting as a tool once we're roughly in the realm of where we want to be sitting fat loss wise. How to balance protein targets on days of fast. So yeah, it also highlights that your recovery will be lower, one, because you're eating less frequently, but two, it's a little bit harder to hit your total protein. Now, if you are fasting for say 16 or 18 hours, you're probably going to get back to, 2 meals. In that case, I'd be looking for a minimum, in most cases, depending on body weight, between 40 and 60 grams of protein in those 2 meals. But we've got to make sure digestively you can break that down, the quality of the rest of that food. The big thing about fasting is, great, you're fasting, what else do you eat on the other 2 meals? For me personally, it would be a good quality Scotch fillet, a couple of eggs, and probably and berries or something, so almost carnivore-y. And then the last meal of the day, a little bit more starchy carbs, rice, sweet potato, etc., and chicken or something more lean meat. So there's becoming 2 meals, but I'd be certainly aiming for 40 to 60 grams of protein in that meal. So not 40 grams of meat, 40 grams of actual protein. So in most cases, 200 to 300 grams of meat there. And if you've been fasting all day, that shouldn't necessarily be an issue, and would definitely keep sugar and refined foods down a lot more after that. So hopefully answered your question, Elaine. Just being able to be mindful of not only the how frequent you are with the fasting. Everybody fasts, in most cases, where if you're sleeping throughout the night, you're fasting for at least 8 or 10 hours. It's just when you move into 12, 14, 16 or 18 hours, at what point is that no longer useful to you? So just keep that in mind as well. I regularly fast 10 to 12 hours a day, and that's a nice recommendation. 16 to 18 hours we become less promoting of for most people if they're doing it every day. But if you've got a reason, that would be where I bring it down. Be mindful of at least hitting that 100 grams threshold of protein. Okay. Now, those are the couple of questions that were sent through from the Reset guys. I've got a couple more here that I want to circle back to from our members last week, and I'm just going to double check if there are any in the group directly. We can circle around to those as well, but I think we're doing okay. All right, it's cool. So there's 3 here I want to share with you because I think they're really useful and the questions you would ask if you knew to ask them, kind of thing. All right, so first one, cardio before or after weights. I am pretty strong to going weights before cardio in nearly all cases. You're going to notice that if you want to get the most out of your strength and the way you weight training, being able to really have that nervous system ready and primed to weight train, you'll notice you'll be a lot stronger, you'll be a lot more focused, your muscle contraction will be a lot better. Having cardio post allows you to focus on a little bit of metabolic benefit, but I would still limit it in most cases to 15 to 20 minutes post weights. So in most cases, that's going to be either a light walk or something, or it's going to be an interval. So 20 to 60 seconds on, 1, 2, or 3 minutes off, and maybe 3 to 10 rounds max of those. All right. I don't see it beneficial to do 30 minutes or an hour of weights and then another hour of cardio. If you need to do both based on the constraints of your day, amazing, but just stick to intervals or a light movement post weights. Main benefit here is we want you to recover from the weight training. That's going to be doing most of the heavy lifting in regards to your body composition goals. If it's truly fitness based, you can absolutely achieve that in a much shorter amount of time with the intervals rather than trying to do a long stepper or zone 2, zone 3 cardio. All right, being very specific on the way you program your cardio when doing it with weights is very important, as well as overall recovery as well. All right. Next one here was the missing variable for most people's training. Now, this is a really big topic that we're talking about in a couple of our YouTube videos lately, and it's come back as being something that a lot of people were very interested in. And the concept is getting more clear on the seasons of training, right? So rather than just doing a random collection of workouts and hopefully making sure that you're getting stronger over time, what season are you in right now? And the big 3 that we typically look at are strength, fitness, or fat loss. Now, there could be more, of course, but strength, fitness, fat loss tend to be the ones that 90% of the time are going to cover the 3 areas that you want to improve. Now, looking at any professional athlete that you likely look up to, let's look at the tennis just finished down here in Sydney and Auckland a couple of weeks before. We were in a position where they were doing a couple of weeks of tournaments, but that's not how they train all year round. Otherwise, their bodies would break, right? There's going to be a season of actual rest. There's going to be a season of strength. There's going to be a season of fitness, and then they're going to get more dynamic and get into drills and speed and all of those more specifics. So being able to get clear on you as that business athlete, as that person wanting to get the most out of your body and your training. What season are you currently in, or is there just a random collection of all of the things trying to happen at the moment? I want to be a little bit fit, a little bit leaner, and a little bit stronger. Being able to get specific on, cool, I'm in a strength phase right now and I'm focusing on getting stronger over this next period of time, is a lot more eloquent, a lot more efficient in regards to your focus of training, and you'll usually enjoy it a lot more too. All right, so that's the missing variable. We're going to talk about this a lot more in trainings to come, but being able to look at that awareness of what season are currently in. If you're not training regularly, then of course, let's get you up to 2 or 3 months worth of frequent training first. But if you're already training regularly and feeling like you've hit a plateau and things are not feeling or responding as good as they should, then seasons of training become very, very useful, okay? Last one I want to talk about, which is what most people miss about calories. Now, this was more of a general question. We had a big old chat about it inside of our group, but being able to look at this as where most people go wrong if they're already eating quote-unquote healthy. We've addressed any gut or hormonal issues in the background. We've now got a lovely foundation of foods. Now, of course, if you're in our menopause or gut or thyroid reset program and you've already got a lovely foundation of nutrition, you've stripped off that little bit of weight and now you're stuck. What do? Well, apart from all the training components we've looked at and really start to get into the more dynamics of proper weight training, progression of things, all of that good stuff, is how calorically dense fats are in comparison to your protein and carbohydrates. All right. Now, if you've been training for a long time, or you've studied nutrition, whatever else, it's surprising how often this still comes up. All right. Just a basic one. Stick with me on this. 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. 4 calories. 1 gram of carbs is also 4 calories. 1 gram of fats is 9 calories. Now, I only bring this up not to get you all obsessed with calorie counting, although I do think that it's useful to at least have a platform of understanding of calories. It allows you to realize that you can have a whole fist of carbohydrates that can still be less total calories than like a thumb of fats. So think your oils, your avocados, your nuts, right? And if you start to realize that you're snacking or grazing on some Brazil nuts or almonds or some peanut butter, how quickly that can be an immense amount of calories in comparison to your potatoes or your rice, right? Which volume-wise significantly more. Of course, we start to think about meat, chicken, beef, etc. You can usually get to a point that you're significantly more full through having a large amount of beef compared to, I don't know about you, but I can get through halfway through a almond butter jar before I feel full. But I'm way more calories in, probably 2,000 calories if I'm halfway through a jar, right? I don't do that often, but I could do it. Being able to get clear on if you're already eating healthy, but you're not able to shift weight, you're training regularly, all of the other considerations are taken into account. It is super regular that even though your meals are beautiful and everything else, getting clear on where we are maybe tipping over on fats a couple times a week, when we're not even aware of it, can make a really big difference. All right, so I'm not going to go down the calorie train too much there, but just being mindful of it. If you've already got some foundations in place, you're addressing gut health and inflammation and quality training, addressing the total caloric load of particular meals, even though it's a lovely salad and your chicken, you've now got your avocado and your olive oil and your nuts on top, boom, there's another 500 calories quite easily. So just being mindful of where that plays through, that can be a really, really useful one to at least track for 2 weeks, really get yourself honest about how much you're actually eating, and then building from there. All right, so I'm going to leave that there, guys. Those are the questions that were submitted for the reset programs, as well as an insight into a couple of the ones we went really deep on with our private clients last week. All right, if there are any more, I've answered the one on Facebook, and it seems like in the Facebook group we don't have any more, so that's cool. If there's any more that drop in later, I'll circle back around and try to answer them as best I can. But otherwise, I hope you have an amazing week, and hopefully those were useful. See you guys. Bye.